Hello, this is John Feldt. This is the weekly water outlook from Blue Water Outlook. Let's start off by looking at soil moisture percentiles across the nation. Areas in green and blue are generally areas that are wet. Areas of yellow and red are generally dry. I think right off you can see that large area of the western U.S., western half of the U.S. is trending dry. That's going to be a concern over that area as we head into the winter or the summer months. But look at the areas of green. We've seen some significant improvement over the upper Midwest as well as the southeast U.S. And we see some areas in blue, which is excess amounts of water getting very soggy, parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin and some surrounding states. But if you can see, overall, it looks like we're trending more towards the dry side over the western part of the U.S., more towards the wet side over the eastern part of the U.S., with the exception of the northeast U.S., which has also been very dry. So how much precipitation would we need to get things sort of back to normal from a soil moisture perspective? The areas here in yellow and brown, 3 inches to as much as 9 inches of rain. So quite a bit of precipitation is needed over the southwest U.S. and the west central U.S. And unfortunately, as you'll see from this briefing, that area is only going to get drier. I don't see a whole lot of improvement in that region at all as we get into the end of May into early June. Over the central part of the state, you see it's shaded white. We're back to normal in those regions. So from last week, how much precipitation, excess precipitation, and I'm going to be showing these images from time to time. Areas in green and blue are indicating areas that received more than normal precipitation, and green is about 1 inch more, 2 inches is indicated by blue. That area can use some rainfall. It's been sort of dry over the western parts of the Dakotas, especially South Dakota, so a surplus of 1 inch or 2 is going to be welcome. Over the parts of Missouri and Illinois, that area has been fairly wet, so a negative an inch or so is probably welcome in that area as well. So at least over the last week, these areas of surplus one way or the other, areas that have been wet were a little bit drier, areas that have been dry have been a little bit wetter. So you might have heard about a lot of severe weather over the last week. We did have quite a bit. I wanted to show you May so far. Primarily what we've seen is a lot of severe weather from Texas up to Kansas. That typical tornado alley track's been pretty quiet this year, and it really kicked in over the last several days from Wednesday right into the weekend. Dots in red are tornado reports, dots in green are hail, and dots of blue are wind reports. Now, the southeast U.S. has been pretty quiet in May. You can see very little severe weather, if any at all, over the southeast U.S. A little bit over the mid-Atlantic and just a scattering elsewhere. So it's been very confined, and this severe weather's come very recently and pretty much right from Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. I wanted to show you some of the severe weather reports here, and what you can see here are the a little bit close up in Texas, 16 tornadoes on Wednesday. Drought Monitor was updated this last week, and it aligns very closely with the patterns of soil moisture as far as percentiles go. Areas in red are really the areas that need the most rain and are currently experiencing the most significant drought impacts. So basically, keep in mind Nebraska, large part of Nebraska, western Kansas, western Oklahoma, and then a very large part of the far southern tier of the U.S. Those are the areas that really need the rain. So when I go into the rain outlook, let's keep that in mind. So the jet stream this week, this is the pattern of the jet stream, and what we've seen is that the jet stream, which was over the northern U.S., is now dipped down to the south, and this is the flow, the current flow. And keep in mind, as we get into the summer months, where we have upper atmospheric or jet energy, and that's the shades of sort of yellow, orange, and especially red, that's the most atmospheric energy, and that's where the most weather will be. And that's why we've had severe weather in Texas and Oklahoma, and we're going to have that jet energy pushing up into some of the upper Midwest this week, and that's been the action spot. If we look at this week, we see that the jet in blue early this week will shift up to the north by late this week and sort of bow up to the north, and that's going to shut off the precipitation over the southern part of the U.S., most of it. It's going to keep it somewhat active over the northern part of the U.S. with that jet stream. So areas that have received some rain recently, Texas and Oklahoma, will still get that early this period, but then as that jet bows to the north, it should gradually quiet down. Matter of fact, looking at the 6 to 10 day, green are the jet stream flows, reds are the anomalies, and whenever we see these red dashed lines, that's positive anomalies. That's saying the jet stream is further north than would be normal this time of year. And generally, and there's a lot of exceptions here, but generally that means warm and dry conditions. And I think that will be the trend over parts of the nation over the next couple of weeks. So here's the rainfall forecast for the next 7 days. We sort of have two patterns going on. We have the southern jet stream energy that's fueling severe weather over Oklahoma, parts of Missouri, and that will be a severe weather producer. And in those strong storms, very heavy rainfall, primarily early this week. And then we have the northern jet stream energy that could go on a little bit longer this week, and that's going to go across the upper tier of the Midwest with more widespread, modest amounts of rain on the order of 1 to 3 inches. Now, I wanted to point out here where the heaviest rain will be in perspective of areas that are dry, and I put the dry soil moistures in brown, and the red dashed line is the areas of heaviest rain. And as you can see, even though some of it will be moving into the areas that have been dry, such as South Dakota, parts of Nebraska, unfortunately, most of the heaviest rain is going to be moving over areas that are already somewhat wet. Ideally, this could have been pulled a little bit further back to the west into Kansas and Nebraska to help. So it'll be of help over parts of South Dakota, parts of Minnesota, North Dakota could use a little bit more rain. But for the most part, it's going to be falling over areas that have been somewhat close to normal or even above normal as far as rainfall over the last couple weeks or last month. Now, if we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, what we see here is that jet pulling up to the north, and with that, it looks like dry and very warm weather over a large part of the U.S., and especially over the areas that have been hard hit by drought. Those look like they're going to remain very hot and also very dry. Kansas, Colorado, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, and perhaps spreading even further off to the north, up into Nebraska and Iowa as well, warmer temperatures. Because that jet stream will be so far north, the upper Midwest from North Dakota across Minnesota, across Wisconsin into Michigan, that very well could remain active with quite a bit of shower and thunderstorm activity. Over the southeast U.S., there will be a dip in the jet stream in the northeast U.S., and that dip will bring some scattered precipitation in those areas as well, and that's why you see that green shading in those areas. This shows these trends as we get through June 4th. These are sort of a potential of total rainfall. The heaviest amounts are in red. So between this week right into June 4th, the heaviest amounts are up in the northern plains, scattered in the southeast U.S. But look how dry it is in the southwest U.S. No rain whatsoever in that area right through June 4th. So unfortunately, I think it looks like drought impacts will be increasing and expanding over the southwest U.S. and perhaps south central U.S. right into early June. Soil moisture looks like it's going to increase. That's that area in blue over the northern parts of the U.S., perhaps over parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Missouri due to the severe weather early in the period. But large parts of the nation look like they're going to be continuing to drying out, and that's that area of the lighter parts of brown, perhaps in parts of Mississippi and Alabama that have had a lot of rain. That is also going to be drying out in that region as well. So the takeaway points this week: in active upper Midwest, some rain will be welcome. That'll be over parts of South Dakota. Other areas not as much. It's been wet. Longer term, the trend for the upper Midwest looks like it's going to remain wet, scattered storms southeast, and continue dry over the west. I will be putting out information throughout the week, but if you ever have any questions, you know where to reach me, John at BlueWaterOutlook.com. I'd love to hear from you, and thank you for listening to this week's briefing.